Hi, this is Amanda.
And this is Jen.
And you're listening to Just This, a podcast that explores everything around being and becoming a mother or parent.
We're excited to have you join us as we dive into the practical details as well as the unseen energetics on topics that span from preconception to years after birth. Are you ready to talk about the third trimester?
Yeah.
It's interesting. Huh?
Let's do it. I'm going to light a candle. Cool. Let's talk about the fourth trimester.
The fourth trimester.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, there's so much in the fourth trimester that I think obviously, like, one.
Okay, let's do an overview of what the fourth trimester is today, like just generally why it's important. Again, it's something that you and I are familiar with a lot, but if you're not around it all the time, people, aren't as familiarized. Like they've heard the term, but they don't really know what it means. We could easily fill, I think, 40 minutes talking generally about the fourth trimester in general.
Yeah, for sure. Which is kind of crazy to think about, I think one of the things I always found amazing was like how much people prep for childbirth, which I think is totally justified. But like, it's literally in the grand scheme of things, the smallest portion that we actually experience, even from like pregnancy to postpartum. Like, even if you're talking just strictly that fourth trimester, that postpartum period, that's still 3 months. Prior to that, you're pregnant for 9 months and you birth for maybe at most like 3 days. I don't know.
I definitely feel like even so, if we were to break it down into pregnancy, birth, postpartum, my personal feeling is that the postpartum is where the transformation happens.
Yes.
It's like if you were going to go on an intensive retreat weekend, you go and you do it. And yeah, it might be a really powerful experience, but like the true transformation of everything that's unfolded and is going to actually happen when you go back home, hopefully.
Yeah.
I think like that's the big difference is when you do these retreats and whatever, you can choose whether you transform or not. When you have a baby, you can't choose. It's gonna happen one way or another.
Happen, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
It's gonna change your life.
Yeah. So I guess we can start with just generally fourth trimester, what it is, where the concept came from. And then we can kind of dive into like how it applies. I mean, I think it's also important to be like how this applies to modern era versus, where it came from culturally. And yeah. So do you want to tell what you think what you know of as the fourth trimester?
I actually don't even know where the term came from. Do you?
My understanding is that as humans, we can only gestate up to 9 or 10 months because then the baby would get too big.
Yes.
And so our body is naturally going to give birth, but that technically that baby is still like in a womb-like state for another trimester. Medically, people can have babies at a certain point. That doesn't necessarily mean that baby has like fully developed into a baby that's ready to be in the world. So my understanding is it's like the hidden trimester that really baby could have even been like gestating more in the womb, but just biologically our bodies cannot do that because baby would get too big and we cause deaths if we were trying.
We're not elephants. We can't carry baby around for like 2 years or something like that, right?
Yeah. And so I think we talked about this the last time we talked. Similarly, like marsupials, the baby will be born, but then like lives in a pouch. And so it's kind of similarly, baby is born, birthed into the world, but baby is still not fully in the world. Like it's like this in between. Baby's out of your womb, but baby's still gestating and needs the closeness to mom and needs like all these different kinds of nourishments. And it's not until that 3 months outside of the womb normally. And I want to touch on this too. Like if you have a premature birth, things like this, because it's not always just 3 months. Like we all like our numbers, but it's basically like that final gestation period that happens outside the body. And so that's why I think that's where the term like fourth trimester, your carrying of the baby, it's just not happening in the womb. That's what I heard. So I don't know.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I've even discussed this too, like just even the postpartum period alone, people think is weeks or like a month after. Even like postpartum depression can go undetected for up to like 2 years. So
Yeah, my
if that's the
personal
case,
belief is postpartum period lasts at least a year, at
I
least.
would
Like that's
say
my,
2. That's my thing. I
yeah.
think 2 is good. And if you think about it, kind of what you're talking about the babies needing us, 2, they'd probably put stuff in their mouths. They could crawl, they could walk, but at least a year, I would say honestly, up to 2 years. Even your body alone, the amount of transformation that it goes to in 9 months, there's no way your body can just pump back out in like 3 months.
You shouldn't even be thinking about what your body looks like for years, especially if you're breastfeeding. So as a midwife, what do you tell your clients about the fourth trimester or
the fourth trimester? I mean, our care generally goes up to 6 weeks. So that's only about half of that fourth trimester. But I think most of our conversation around it is really within that first month. And there's kind of a saying in midwifery where it's first 5 days on the bed, first 5 days around the bed, first 5 days around the room. That's very coincides with a lot of like cultural things too, like Chinese medicine, even like Mexican cultures, Aztec, like there's a ton of cultures that really honor the postpartum period. A lot of it is around about a month, 6 weeks to a month of doing the month or whatever they want to call it. So that's what we also really educate on. My first midwife that I studied with, I loved it. She said, day 1, you're 100 years old. And then you reverse backward from there. You just went through a marathon. You just grew a baby for 9 months. You just went through childbirth. And now you have to take care of yourself. One thing that a lot of people don't know is that breastfeeding actually takes more calories than when you're pregnant. So we have this, we can eat whatever we want when we're pregnant. It's like, no, eat whatever you want when you're breastfeeding. Just like I know you were kind of touching on that earlier too, but it takes more calories to breastfeed a baby than it does to actually grow one. But that's mainly like what we're educating them on is to rest.
I think there's 2 parts to the fourth trimester. There's the mother's well-being. And really, honestly, I think the fourth trimester, that term is supposed to be around the mother's well-being. Honestly, it's like the bonding with the child and the taking care of yourself is what's going to let that child thrive. Just the way you were taking care of yourself when you were pregnant. You have to consider that you need just as much rest and energy. It is so easy, especially maybe as a first-time parent, because babies sleep so much in the first month or 2 months, and you have so many hormones that have been released post-birth, to really easily feel like, oh, I've got this. This is nothing. I am going to jump in full speed, and that will catch up to you. And people don't know that. You can't see the future, right?
Yeah.
But it can be hard for people to slow down and rest in our society in general.
Yep.
And doing that legitimately for those first 3 months after birth, even when you don't feel tired. And I know in Chinese medicine and a lot of cultures, they actually say you can shave years off your life if you don't take that for those first 3 months post-birth seriously. Really allow your body to restore itself, to allow yourself to heal. Also, like being the seed and foundation for your relationship with your child and with your partner and with your family. If you have other kids, that is the time that you will be at your best and at your worst. If you're so distracted with other things, it can be really easy for your relationship in connection with yourself to fall apart. This can be like, speaking of postpartum depression, like you can start to resent your child or have your baby, because you're depleted. You and your partner can start to really, like, this is where marriages can fall apart. And it's all because you're not just taking the space and time.
Doing too much.
Simple. And nobody wants to point to that.
Yeah, but, you're doing way too much. I mean,
it's because you're depleted. So what are some things that you recommend people doing?
Be in bed for the first week. Like, it just, from a medical, like Chinese medicine perspective, you lose a lot of blood, right? That's even Western, right? You use a ton of blood. And then in breastfeeding, Chinese medicine believes breast milk is from qi and blood. So you've already lost a ton of blood, and now you need to rebuild your qi, which is already depleted because you just had childbirth. And I relate childbirth to marathons because even fast childbirth, 3 or 4 hours. If someone was to run, if someone's like, hey, I'm going to go for a run for 3 or 4 hours. Wow, that's a big run, you know?
And your body, even if it's a fast birth, your body is going from 0 to 10 dilation and pushing like a small watermelon through it.
A small watermelon through it. Yes, exactly. So I guess, you know, my recommendation, of course, is like stay in bed. I tell people act like a princess, get everything brought to you, have a station set up. It takes a lot on the body and it has to be like recognized. What do you recommend? Because you do postpartum.
I think for like modern people, it, like I said, it comes back to like being like just bored. Allow yourself to indulge in like the ultimate staycation. Yeah. I really dove into the books because I mean, and this is a great time too. The first trimester is a great time to read all the books you want to about parenting. You know, because let's be honest, we all know we weren't reading those when we were pregnant. And unless, you know, maybe you're a parent now, you know, if you already have kids, like your time is going to be harder for the postpartum. But even more so reason to lean on your community and, you know, have the child go with the partner or with the grandparents or whatever it is. I think people are
the older child.
Yeah. I think people are well aware if they have older children to get that community in place. But 100%, the first couple weeks, if you can have services brought to your house, whether that's like the acupuncture, that's something I wish I didn't, or the massage or whatever, baths, if you can do baths, steaming, if you can do steaming, just everything, like consider your own home like it's like a spa for yourself. Read books. I know a lot of people, as far as like being in bed with the baby, people worry about the whole co-sleeping thing. And I think it's really important to differentiate that, like you lying in bed with your baby sleeping and you being awake, sleeping in the bed for naps too, especially if there's another awake adult around.
There's safe ways to co-sleep. Tons of safe ways to co-sleep. That's definitely another topic we should talk about at some point.
Yeah.
I think too, like talking about services, the other thing I tell people is like, do not let anyone over unless they have food in their hands and they're dropping it off.
Yes.
And they're not holding baby, they're cleaning your house or
I personally think friends should not come into the house at all. I mean, unless maybe you have like a couple of really good friends that are legitimately taking your older kids or somehow, you know, like supporting like by cleaning the dishes or whatever it is. It is more exhausting than you think to just hold space for other people. Yeah. And if you don't have the resources to have services come over, like lean on whatever community you have. So if a friend wants to come over, you can say, great, I want a foot massage, you know, and I want a foot massage. But even then, I'm going
to ask for that next time if I'm ever pregnant again. So be like, Amanda, I want a foot massage.
Or put a limit to when your friends will be there. Like legitimately tell them, you can come over for 30 minutes between these 2 hours, but make sure there's a limit because people will think, and I ran into the situation, they will think they're being helpful by sitting there and holding your baby, but like just to have somebody around is actually draining your energy. Even if you don't see it. And
holding baby is not helpful most of the time.
You'll be more exhausted. It's hard again because you're not sleep deprived yet.
Yeah. No sleep deprivation yet. Tired, but not sleep deprived.
Exactly. So it's hard to tell people, like, remember to take your naps during the day. Like when baby sleeps, like try to sleep. But legitimately, like I really encourage people to try to take one nap a day, even if that's just for 1 hour. It'll build your habits of being able to nap because that will become something as a parent you need to learn how to do. Like, you will just need to learn how to nap if you are hitting your end of your rope with sleep or whatever it is. And also by doing that, you're slowly building, you know, you are adding those hours into your sleep bank. The other big thing I tell people, which is really easy to do, is at nighttime, don't ever look at your phone. Don't ever pick up your phone because of it's so easy when you're like getting up to breastfeed or whatever for people to be on their phone and texting at night, but that really fucks with your sleep rhythms.
Even more. I ever did that. Looked at my phone at night.
It's really common for people to do because they're bored. Again, like you're breastfeeding and you're bored. I love I had a meditation and it was specific to breastfeeding. And
Cool.
I loved every time I breastfeed to put that on for almost like 2 months. I would listen to that. It would help relax me, which increases the milk flow and everything else, just, would increase the bonding and the ease of the latch. It's like when you're in a more calm state, your baby picks up on that, your baby's in a more calm state. So, and it would also just keep me in more of like that beta brainwave state. So that once, baby was asleep on the boob and I could delatch baby, set her down, I would easily fall back asleep versus like being up and like, having my brain stimulated. So
right. Well, and actually breastfeeding is supposed to make you tired. Like there's hormones that actually make you physically tired. So I understand, like, if you're like on your phone while you're breastfeeding, you're stimulating your mind. So you're actually not you're not feeling the effects of the hormones that make you sleepy, which if you kind of like take out the phone, you probably like, I actually do kind of feel sleepy after breastfeeding.
Yeah, because it's like working out.
Yes, it is. Taking all of it.
Thing you mentioned about the calories, my sister had made some comment that like dairy cows, they have to actually give them breaks after a certain, like they can't continually milk them. They have to like give them breaks because otherwise they would basically die of losing too much weight.
It's
exactly. Like, so it's like, it is a true thing that lactation
it's huge.
Takes up so many calories.
I mean, it's also like, this is like what we also talk about, like breastfeeding is a natural weight. All that weight that you gain during pregnancy, it's the body's way to naturally take it off, right?
Yeah.
But you still like what you're eating is going to eventually get taken to the child. And like you said, breastfeeding, it's going to take, if it doesn't find it, it's going to take it from your body, from your system. And that's where you can get depleted. And it's interesting too, because in Chinese medicine, they believe like post-birth, immediately post-birth, within that 6 weeks, actually, your kind of your entire system's like kind of opened. So if say you have some things that are going on that are not really the healthiest, like you have some, I don't know, like chronic headaches, it's like kind of actually an ideal time to treat it because your system is like so open. They believe in like channel systems, certain like kind of degrees of medicine, Chinese medicine, the channel is like literally all open for you to give birth during labor. And so postpartum, all those are way open. And this is why they also don't like you to be like exposed to cold and all that other stuff and like be outside in the house, out of the house, because you're like replenishing all that stuff and they don't want any like wind or cold. They really want to take care of you so that you are like the healthiest when those channels actually close back up.
Yeah. So I like that. And I 100% believe that, relating it to, let's say like you have an experience in a jungle or whatever with a shaman, they say that too. I mean, that's why you need integration before you go back, because you're completely opened and you're susceptible. It's like what you're going to allow to come into your energetic space at that time. Like you said, it's going to be stored. And if we think about somatic, if we're fully blown open after birth, and then we have all these experiences that we might not even know are kind of like causing trauma, like people coming in and talking to us constantly or whatever it is, because you're still in a very subconscious state post-birth. I mean, I would say that first month is like very much
you're sensitive.
Hormones all over the place. Like you're still processing what the hell happened during your birth. You're like usually processing your birth. You're also processing like this new reality that you have with whatever number baby that just came, and you have to be super concerning of any energy, because you're actually not on your most spidey senses, because you're just dedicated to the child right now of being able to guard that out. And if anything comes in, it can actually be stored in your energetic and somatic being for the rest of your life in a subconscious way that you might not even know that's there.
It's interesting too, because even from like a Western medical standpoint, I find a lot of women report like a lot of like autoimmune diseases and things like that like actually occur post-pregnancy, right? So like prior to pregnancy, they're totally healthy and they're like, and then I had my baby and then this happened, or like this happened and now I have this. And it's like, I really think there's a correlation to that. Maybe Western medicine doesn't have explanation for it, but like it's basically you've totally opened up. And like you said, maybe something has hit them energetically or opened something that was there and it just didn't get treated. So it's it's, and just more the reason to like lay in bed and just like be by yourself. I think it was like a day or two after my son was born, my mother-in-law or ex-mother-in-law, I guess you could say, was like, Don't hold your baby too much. Thinking about it now, who gives a fuck, right? But like, seriously, like at that moment, like you're talking about, like you're so sensitive in normal everyday life. Like now if someone said that to me, I'd be like,
I think this comes back to two things here. First of all, your baby is 100% dependent on you in the fourth trimester period. Well, I think a lot of this healing and stuff we're emphasizing, especially in the first month, but like month 2 and month 3, like sure, maybe you're out, doing things, but 100% try, like this is where sleep maybe starts transitioning, baby's awake a little bit more. The book, like the first 40 days, and that's a great book for the fourth trimester. You being out in the world with baby, I would say don't even do it before 8 to 10 weeks. Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, I tried to do a whole month without going out, and that was like,
it's
I even knew all the benefits of it, and I'm like, I need to get out of this house. And like,
this is where you could break it down of like, nobody comes to visit you for 4 weeks. Okay. After 4 weeks, then people come to start visiting you for maybe the next 4 weeks. And then once you hit 8 weeks, like you start to slowly venture around just in your neighborhood, or like go for walks with your friends or something like that. And it is hard. I mean, it's a challenge. What you hit on here with intuition, you're more in tune with your intuition than probably you have been in a very long time. It is an opportunity. And with that can come overwhelm. Trusting yourself, like trusting your intuition, because the more you're able to lean into your intuition, I think in this fourth trimester, these 3 months after birth, the stronger that's going to be as you continue to parent that child throughout the next 18 years. If you're cutting yourself off from your intuition or allowing other things to kind of be static around the, noise that's not allowing you to not really sink in and listen to your intuition, I actually do believe, especially those first 4 weeks, like don't look at blogs, don't try to research the internet, like just listen to what you feel and ask some trusted professionals that you want, like your midwife or whatever, if you have a pediatrician you really love, but honestly, listening to your own intuition during those times is going to be key, because otherwise
my personal, like I heard this and I thought it was the best advice I got. And that was, this is my baby, my choice. You had your baby and your choice. So, and it's not to say like your choices were wrong, but it's like, you've had your chance, you've had your opportunity to raise the baby the way that you wanted to, and you did that. And now it's my turn to raise the baby that I want to in the way that I feel is right. And I think that goes along with your intuition, because if you're just raising them based off of other people's life, you're not really listening to like what's right for you or for your baby. I think you even know that too, like in doula work and postpartum and birth work, it's all about like what's right for you and your baby and your family.
Yeah. I think that's also important too, like to note, it's like every baby is different. Right.
Every baby is so different.
There's not going to be a one size fits all for anything, for any, I mean, think about like as people in the world and like how we operate, like every person like responds. Some people respond to certain feedback, certain ways. Some people respond to certain words, gestures, and we all come into this world with our own energy. And you as the mother are the most connected to that child's energy. At that time of birth, they will become their own being, and you're slowly from the day you have that baby, your energies are like separating.
Yes. I'm so on board with that. I feel the same way. It's like you're every day letting go of our child.
But I mean, like you are the most in tune with that energy from day one, and it's like your job to honor it, to honor whatever energy it is, and your intuition knows exactly what that energetic being needs at that time. And this again, like is the importance of that first trimester, because nobody else has that but you're protecting this energetic being as they slowly start to basically adapt to, I'm in a world that's not the womb, you know what I mean, like that has all these other things coming at them. And not to say at 3 months like they're completely ready for everything that comes at them. Your job is to basically create a trust bubble for them. And that's like so important in those first 3 months. So, and again, I want to come back to like the health of the mom. Like if you aren't rested, cared for and physically is important. Like, I think, we touched on like the importance of massage for you is so, like, all of the biological benefits of massage, even things like your womb returning to back to its size, like doing abdominal massage. You can do self abdominal massage or have your partner do it. You want to energetically, like, all of these like physical things we do, it's not just to pamper. It legitimately is to heal the body physically and energetically in a way that you will then be able to show up for your child. Because again, if you're not filling yourself as a mom, and I think this is where the wisdom of that fourth trimester really gets lost on people sometimes. We think it's about the baby after the baby's born, and it really needs to be first about the mom, because baby will not survive if mom is not. Baby will survive, quote unquote, not thrive if mom is not taking care of herself.
And I think too, like, I think that's one thing I've always appreciated about home birth is, like, compared to Western medicine, after baby's born with Western medicine, you go to the hospital and, like, it's most of the focus just shifts to baby right away, and that's it. And with like home birth midwifery and stuff, the care is still on mom. Like, we still check in with mom. How is breastfeeding? How are you feeling? Like, all that gets checked. Like, we're checking on them multiple times within the first 10 days alone on mom and baby. And it just doesn't happen in the Western culture. They're just more worried about mom bleeding. And then if something comes up, then treat it after, as opposed to, hey, my breasts are feeling full and they're starting to get warm. Well, that's not great. Like, we don't want that to happen. That's early signs of, mastitis and stuff like that. Like, let's work on that. Like, nothing on how to take care of yourself, how to take care of baby, nothing. How to integrate this child into your life, because your whole life is now running on every 2 hours, right? Like, because the baby has to feed. So it's like, okay, what are you going to do? You got 2 hours. And even then it's not really a full 2 hours, because baby's
based
crying.
on when it's based on when you start to the next start.
Exactly. And then the diaper change and the holding and the calming. So maybe you have an hour. So you're like living every hour to hour. And I think it's just, anyway.
Speaking, let's talk really quick on nutrition, just generally in that first, 3 months, the fourth trimester. So that book, the first 40 days, is one of my favorites about, do you have favorite books about the fourth trimester?
A lot of the books I've read is like all about Chinese medicine and doing the month. That's like where our focus is. So a lot of that's more heavy, like the nutrition's heavy on herbs, like things to bring in milk, have like high milk supply, things to eat postpartum.
The first 40 days is very focused on food postpartum, but I do love it because it does talk a little bit about like the each month stage and kind of where you and baby are at. But you want to talk about the nutrition, because I think that's like an important aspect. I think there's a lot of misconceptions. I think it's being corrected, but there's a lot of misconceptions about what is healthy eating really look like postpartum, right? Especially in those first couple months after.
What do you mean there's like a lot of misconception?
Well, I mean, you and I live maybe in bubbles where people are more in tune with the fourth trimester in general. But I think, just generally that like, eat healthy after you have a baby. That means having a salad, or that means having, a smoothie or things like that, where we both know that is quote unquote healthy, but it's not going to be healthy for a postpartum mom.
And the reason being is that those things are very cold, they're raw, and so those things are hard to digest, and our body is already in the process of healing. Cooking anything, I think we talked about it with the placenta, like that's the first step of eating, is cooking it. Smelling it is like another step, like putting it in our mouth, the saliva, chewing it is things. So by the time it gets down, so if you're taking a smoothie, something like totally raw, blending it and just sucking it down, like there's no process of like digestion that's happening prior to even starting that. I think it's good to like going back to intuition. I think there's some truth in like listening to like what it is that we crave. Like I think obviously there's something in there, that some mineral or vitamin or something in there that like your body needs to process. And the other thing too is fats. You want high protein, you want fats. And soups is another thing. Like, obviously, I'm sure in the 40 days, they talk about a ton of soups, right?
All kinds of soups,
All kinds of soups, Just a ton of soups. Because you can add herbs to soups, and you can get so much in like a compacted amount, right? Like if you're busy and you only have an hour, which sounds like a lot.
Putting it in a mug where you can just like
exactly
it, or like, you know, kind of sip, you know, tip the mug and just drink a little bit. They say anything that's like easy to eat with one hand, but the soups are, and there's something about soups where they're so nourishing. Okay. And I used to love having my partner just like spoon feed me.
Heck yeah, see? Be a princess. You got to be a princess.
Because you're holding the baby and the baby's breastfeeding. And then it was like, it felt like the circle of life. It's like, you're feeding me, I'm feeding the baby. All is right in this world.
It's all is right. We're all good. Everyone's happy.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Like, yeah, I love that example. It's great. I'll tell my friend, like, you can come over for half an hour, but you have to spoon feed me.
And I love that you did tap on like the intuition with the eating too, because the best way, people who want to get back to their like pre-birth body, first of all, like, again, whole nother discussion on this, because you will never have a pre-birth body again. Yeah. But your body is like even more fantastical than it will ever be. Your body will look great again if you can allow yourself to listen to it and honor what it's needing in the moment. I really do think when you try to like restrict yourself or put these boundaries like this early on after birth, you don't realize you're creating these chronic things that are actually might cause weight loss to be really difficult in the future, because you're screwing things up in ways that you don't know.
Yeah. So. Babies are energetically entwined to us as mothers. And I think that we already have weight problems in our society. And like, if we're already putting weight restrictions on ourselves, like our babies are going to pick up on that energetically. And I think that's just even awful. I actually lost like weight really fast, and not super fast, but like it was just basically breastfeeding and baby wearing. And I would go for walks like after I felt better after the 6 weeks,
after 10 weeks.
But, yeah, we'll talk about it again, but it's not like a simple like calorie in, calorie out type thing.
I do want to touch really quick before we finish on like if your baby is born before or after the due date, because it can be easy to think of like the fourth trimester as just 3 months after the baby is born. But I really feel like people need to be aware, if you have a baby that's born early, you need to treat it as that baby is still gestating like up to full term. That baby's gestation out of the womb is going to be longer than 3 months. That baby is healthy and surviving, but time is needed for them even more so to be that much more energetically connected to you and around you physically. And this is why premature babies, they actually, like babies in general, but especially premature babies, like when you hold them, they gain weight faster. I just wanted to put that because I think sometimes that can be a misunderstanding people have of like, 3 months after my child's born. Well, your child was born a month early. So like we need to honor that and know that your child is probably going to take at least 3 months, if not more, to adjust to being in this world.
And I think I see that. And maybe it's becoming a little bit more, there's a more awareness around it where people will reach out, this is happening, my baby's this age. And then they'll say like adjusted age. Literally, they'll put adjusted age in there because, like you said, like, they're just not. I mean, even the last weeks of pregnancy, like the baby's brain grows like a third larger. And that's huge in just like a week.
And this could go the opposite direction too. If you most people will never be over 2 weeks due, but I do know somebody who was a full month, quote unquote, past their due date. And who knows, because due dates are also just a guesstimate. Let's be honest.
A lot of times.
If your baby has spent more time, they might adapt and feel that security, and that the extended time might not be as needed. But again, this is where your intuition, you will know as a mother, where your baby's at. So
and they're going to develop all differently too. It's not like a set thing. Just to kind of like sum back up, like the emphasis that we had that first month on the fourth trimester, there's a lot of emphasis there because there's so much change that you're basically processing really like to go through. And then it's those next month 2 and 3 is really like that integration process. You're getting a crash course on your baby and this new life. And then months 2 and 3 is like really where you get to start practicing and integrating everything, because things kind of start to like settle in and they start to get into flow. You're learning about your baby more and stuff like that. I think that's why there's such a big emphasis early on. And then also all the healing that's taking place and like all the learning, even for baby, your baby is brand new. First time on land. Your baby's a land baby now. Like before that, it was water.
Do you recommend people doing like compressed heating on the womb space?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I learned belly binding, which is like what you talked about, like the massage. And I love, that's like one of my favorite things to do postpartum. And it's so fascinating to me to do it like literally within 24 hours of birth, to do it again for them like 6 weeks later, even like when we were kind of saying goodbye, because the physical changes that happen in that 6 weeks, amazing. Like it's just incredible. Like the stomach and the womb and like all the organs are so soft, relaxed from all the relaxin that you have. And like even the abdomen, right? Like it's all stretched out. And so when you like do it later on, it's just like it feels like it's totally different body. It's amazing. But yeah, he is part of that. We use moxa in Chinese medicine. It's even in fertility, like you want to keep that area warm. Like who wants to stand in the freezing cold, right? Like
a hot water bottle, hot rice
hot pad. Exactly. And it feels good. Heat is so healing and it's warming. So yeah, I'm all for heat, and just like soups and food, like we were talking about, like it's all warming. Everything's about warming, because like you said, we open up, right? So we don't want to let cold in. We really want to have warmth. Like physically, you want the warmth.
Yeah.
You don't want to be exposed to cold. Yeah. It's good. And the moxa specifically, the reason they use it is because it actually penetrates deeper into the body. So I actually did a test. My dad was smoking a cigar once. So I like put it on my hand. What's like the big deal about, like moxa specifically? Is it just heat being applied to the body? It's like, no, somehow the herb Aya is like it penetrates into the skin like at a deeper level that even like a cigar rolled up just doesn't do. You feel the heat superficially, but it doesn't like really penetrate in like the moxa sticks will do. It's pretty amazing.
All right. Well, any last words?
No? Don't do anything. Be a princess.
Slow down. Be a princess.
Slow down. Yeah. Slow down. Be a princess. Saying that slow down, like it really reminds me like too, when I first started being a midwife, learning to count babies' reps, hear them, I realized I actually had to slow down to the pace of the baby to like hear it. The world around me really had to like cancel out so I could actually like be with the baby and be present. And their essence is so slow. Babies move slow. It's a good reminder, like move at the pace of our babies.
Yeah, right. Like that. Awesome.
Hey there, amazing listeners. We just want to say a huge thank you for tuning into our convo on the Just This podcast today. We appreciate each and every one of our listeners, and your continued support means the world to us.
If you enjoyed this episode and found value in it, we would be incredibly grateful if you could take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform, or share this episode with someone you think would enjoy it too. Your reviews and shares not only motivate us, but they also help others discover our show.
We're also all about keeping the conversation going and hanging out with our incredible community. Head over to justthis.site, that's justhis.site, where you'll find additional resources, ways to connect with us, and join the conversation, plus some more goodies.
Thank you again for being a part of the Just This community. We'll be back soon. Until next time, remember to take care of yourself and embrace the wonder as you navigate this extraordinary adventure.